With so much uncertainty in the world right now, today I want to cover, should you be renting in 2021 or should you be looking at buying your home? So with so much uncertainty in the world right now, I wanted to dive into the topic of, should you be renting your property that you live in 2021, or is there an advantage to owning that property? So that's the topic I want to cover. Now, to start off with, this video isn't for everyone. Everyone has different circumstances that may make one form of living in a property a bigger advantage to another. One of the big pros I see for renting is if you're not staying in a certain location for long. If you're young, single, free, and changing towns every 6 months or so, there's going to be some real big positives there to renting. This video is really focused on people that are going to stay in the one location for more than 5 years, as that's where the benefits of home ownership really start to see value. So to jump into it, one of the big pros to buying a property in 2021 is the low interest rate environment. Interest rates in Australia are currently at record lows. The Reserve Bank of Australia has come out and said that they're likely to stay that way for the foreseeable future. So I think we can really start to get used to this climate of low interest rates. And I think for the next few years anyway, we're going to stay in this economy where we are seeing these low rates of sub 3% for primary residencies. Now, if you are borrowing at 3%, essentially your repayments really are very small when you look at your repayments, and the interest that you are paying is very small when you look at it in comparison to what rental prices are doing. At the moment, if you were to borrow $1 million, so borrowed the full $1 million at 3%, your repayments, your interest repayments, so not including the principal and paying down the loan, but just the interest alone, is $576 per week. Now that's on $1 million loan. If you were borrowing more around the medium price point and say borrowed $500,000, the interest repayments on that is only $288 per week. Now, most properties worth around that $500,000 are renting in excess of $500 a week. So we can see straight up that the interest you're paying is considerably cheaper than the rent. So that is a huge positive when it comes to owning a property versus renting. The costs of owning that property and living there are going to be cheaper than the actual rental repayments. The other big advantage to home ownership is historically, rental prices and sale prices have gone upwards. Without a doubt, there has been wobbles in prices. Prices aren't always guaranteed to go up. But looking historically over the last 30, 40, 50 years in Australia, we do see prices continue to climb upwards. And it's important to remember, not only do sales prices climb up, but also the amount that you would pay if you were renting increase. So say on a $500 per week rental property, if prices just went up by 2% for 20 years, in 20 years time you'd essentially be paying 50% more for that rental property. Where, provided interest rates stay relatively stable, then your repayments are basically going to stay the same for the term of the loan, which in most cases is a 30-year loan term. So in 30 years time, you're essentially going to be paying the same repayments as what you are today. Where if you're renting that property, your rental prices are going to go up over the time and you will be paying more in rent. Now, what this means in real terms is that if your repayments on the loan, if you bought a property, your repayments on the loan will actually decrease in real terms because your wages are likely to increase, the cost of living is likely to increase with inflation, but your mortgage repayments, provided interest rates stay stable, will actually stay the same. So in real terms, the percentage of your wage that you're paying towards your loan will decrease over time versus renting, which the rental prices do historically have gone up over that time. And like I said, just a 2% increase per year, compounded over 20 years, you're paying 50% more in rent. One of the other huge advantages to owning your own residency, especially if you're paying principal and interest, is it is like a forced saving plan. If you're paying principal and interest, say on a 30-year loan, over that 30 years, you essentially will pay that property out in total. So you will no longer have a loan on that property. And this is where paying principal and interest really is that forced saving plan, where if you're just paying rent, that rent is going to someone else, you're not actually paying anything off. Now, a lot of people here will say, well, I'll pay the difference between renting and owning, and I'll put that into the stock market. But thanks to the low interest rate environment that we are in, it's actually considerably cheaper for a large majority of properties to actually own that property than it is to pay rent. So the actual difference between principal and interest repayments and renting, it's actually a favour in regards to ownership. So saying that you're going to save the difference, well, there isn't a difference at the moment. It is cheaper to be owning property. So that argument has gone out the window in these low interest rates environments that we are currently seeing. Probably the biggest advantage of all is when you're 70, 80, 90 years old and no longer want to work. If you're paying rent, you're going to have to pay rent to the day you die. Where if you're paying principal and interest and paying off your loan, that loan will be paid off over the 30-year window or whatever time period you're paying that loan off. And eventually you won't have to pay rent or mortgage repayments to anyone. You'll own that asset outright. So that's a big sense of security, especially as you move into retirement, knowing that you own that asset outright and that asset is yours to do as you like. You can live with a roof over your head for essentially free, council rates, insurance, but really a negligible amount compared to rent. Or you can sell that asset and downsize. So owning that asset really does create that sense of security, especially when you move into retirement. The final big pro to home ownership is it's a tax-free asset. So that means that any profits you make on your primary residence, you can sell and you do not need to pay tax. Where this is a huge advantage is, say you made $100,000 off your primary residence, that's the equivalent of making about $140,000 if you had to actually work for that money. So the fact that it is a tax-free asset, and really one of the only classes of tax-free assets, is a huge positive, and why I do encourage everyone to own their own property if it fits their circumstances. Obviously everyone is different, so do your own research on that front, but there really is some huge positives to owning your own property versus renting. And like I say, especially in today's age of low interest rates, I really do see it as a huge positive, as it is actually cheaper than renting in a lot of cases. Hope this video did help, and I hope moving into 2021, your goals and visions and what you do want to achieve become a little bit clearer, and hopefully it's a far better year for the economy as a whole. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you check out some of my other videos. We put out a heap of content on this channel and love bringing you new videos.